Hi there, this is Karen, and I'm here with my buddy Whiskey Sour. Hope that everything's well with you. I wrote a blog today. Back into blog writing for a little while, till if you saw my video yesterday, we're heading over to Macworld up in San Francisco this coming weekend. And so life's going to get crazy again, but I feel a little better, not quite as tired, getting a little bit better sleep. But all's good, everything's cool. I was inspired, though, with everything that's been going on, to write a blog called, Is the Small Stuff Keeping You from the Big Stuff? Between several meetings this past week, I couldn't help but think about how much time gets wasted worrying about all the little things. Just meeting after meeting after meeting I've taken, and some of the priorities that people have within their meetings and within their companies is kind of mind-boggling to me. That, you know, why are you thinking about that when we could be thinking about this, and why are you distracted by that when we can be thinking about these other things? And there's a saying that says, that suggests it's all in the details. But I think that applies to when we're doing something really creative, or when that really important task at hand requires our special attention. However, I don't think that it applies to when we're so distracted by the things which ultimately don't apply in the grander scheme of things. And there have been so many scenarios where we're distracted by our personal vendettas, or we're trying to prove that we can do something that we're told we can't. And of course this stuff motivates us sometimes, but this to me is just a severe waste of precious time. And I've talked about before about how valuable every moment is and how important I think it is to guard our lifestyle. And I also think it's important to note when something is distracting to us, and from realizing that our true self and our purpose here. And that's the tricky part. The media, the friends, our job, and their family, they just never seem to get tired or exhausted of steering us into their lifestyle and their way of thinking and their way of doing things and their purpose. And we're not taught to be leaders anymore. We're taught to essentially just be followers, part of the flock. And I sincerely believe that each one of us has a really important job, a lesson or a journey, which is trying to gain our attention. But the problem is that our own calling usually isn't very boisterous in its approach. It's like everything else is just coming at us like wildfire, and you got this little voice in there going, me, me, just tiny and quiet. And the true voice usually comes in this insistent whisper, which addresses the very depths of our core, instead of being broadcast with all these dazzling lights that are going on around us. That has been my experience anyways. I believe that my true calling has been to reintroduce love and compassion again. And that's really funny, because I can really assure you that I am not a perfect example of that. And I often wonder why that call is so strong, because I sit there and think, shouldn't you be going and, you know, asking some Mother Teresa type or something, you know, to spread love and compassion? Yeah, I got this really, really strong call to spread it, and yet I'm not really very good at it all the time. I have been good at it. I know how. Fundamentally, I know how, but I don't apply it all the time. So I'm working on that. So I often wonder why that call is so strong. But I suppose even if you're not perfect at your calling, or whatever that is, you can be a good messenger for it. You know, I'm just here to deliver the message of love and compassion. Doesn't mean I do it. The problem is that I've had with my calling, that this, you know, that I'm supposed to be doing this. The problem I have with it is it didn't fit into two parts of my lifestyle when I took a good look at it. It didn't fit into my career agenda, and it didn't fit into my vengeance. And those are the two things I want to talk to you about today. I grew up wanting to be in the spotlight. I wanted to act, I wanted to sing, I wanted to make music. And I do still really enjoy those things, and I'll always do them. But the problem was that my ego was not in check at the time, and therefore it never flew back then how I wanted it to. It was all about, look at me, instead of regarding music and the arts as a way to reach out, or as outreach, or to help heal. I would just think that my career choice was all about, look at me. So my ego was not in check. And I think this agenda was really in massive conflict, because a higher calling was telling me that I needed to do it differently. But the higher calling is such a whisper. It's not boisterous, and it's not spectacular. That's the problem. And I didn't want to listen to that voice, because it just simply didn't seem very glamorous to me. Just A little voice inside you just like, just be nice, spread love, spread compassion. That doesn't seem very glamorous. It doesn't seem like I can get very famous that way. And the other conflict that I had was my higher calling was not in alignment with all the plans that I had to inflict vengeance. The second part of what I was saying there. It's like it got in the way of my career agenda, and it got in the way of my vengeance. It was not in alignment with all the plans that I had to inflict vengeance on those who have done me wrong. I was very intent on making sure they knew. And I became absolutely obsessed, not with attacking, but proving that my worth was there in certain scenarios. If I wanted to be a superstar, which honestly, today I don't care, I'm too tired. If I wanted to be a superstar and those around me didn't think that I could, then that would fuel me towards becoming that. I couldn't think of anything else. I became obsessed. It's just like, no, you're not going to prove, I'm going to prove these guys that I can do this, and you're going to tell me what I can or cannot do. The problems and conflicts then would come when the journey to that position showed me things which were contrary to my character. So I started becoming somebody I wasn't so that I could have some vengeance, so that my career agenda would be realized. And that's when the true battle switched from me versus them to me versus me, that little voice. And essentially the voice inside me became stronger to follow it rather than my own agendas. And I think because I was listening, I could hear it better then. So it's not that it necessarily got louder, but I was maybe just paying attention. You don't need a message to be really loud. If you can hear it, you can hear it. I say this to people in the studio all the time. If you can hear it, why do you have to turn it up? You know? Of course, there's things you want to feel, and that's fun, but if you're listening for a message, it's like, you got the message. And many times within the businesses that I'm involved in, you'll hear me talk a lot about the craziness that goes on in meetings and businesses and stuff. I witness times when our focus gets pulled to seek vengeance or prove our worth. And then many, many, many hours and days will get wasted on adding that, next chalk line onto the wall. And onto smaller victories, which just end up leaving us farther away from our ultimate goals anyway. And some of these are based in fear, and some of them are based in paranoia, and some are based on easy win scenarios that are the equivalent to winning the lottery. People think they can get there really fast and it's easier, but how many times do we do this in our personal lives and our relationships, even outside of our business context that we have? Sometimes, something that our partner says or does can pull us farther away from our calling, and all we had to do at that moment in time is recognize it and stop it in its tracks. And that saying, don't sweat the small stuff, my mom used to say, it'll all come out in the wash. Those sayings were true, but they don't really punctuate the point that I'm trying to make here. I'm merely suggesting that somewhere along the way, we allowed something or someone to distract us or trick us into doing what life, into not doing what life wants us to do, and then consequently pulls us in the opposite direction of our full potential. So think about how many people spend their time complaining about what the other person is doing, and if you were to ask them what they were doing, it's like, well, you're complaining about that guy, but what are you doing right now? They'll say, well, they're busy complaining about what the other guy's doing. It's just the wrong focus point, I think. If we want to move forward in our own lives, we really shouldn't be focusing on all that stuff. If you had to, out there, write a list of all the things which pull your mind away from the true voice that's going on inside you, and I know you've heard it, because we all have it, could you identify what those are? Could you identify the things in your life that are really pulling you away from the true voice that's really telling you what you should be doing? Is it gossip? That does it a lot. Bad-mouthing will do it a lot. That can pull you away from your own character and what you're supposed to be doing. Is it money? Is it the potential of being famous? Is it keeping up with the Joneses? Is it negativity? Is there something that keeps appealing to your lavish side or your lavish lifestyle when maybe a more modest lifestyle is where you're truly needed? That's one that people do not want to swallow. Everybody wants to be rich. Everybody wants to have a lot of stuff. But what if your true calling isn't there? What if you're not meant to be married and have children? What if you're not meant to have a lot of money? What if your calling is in another place? What if there's another purpose for you that you're just totally ignoring because you're too busy chasing just something you just plain old-fashioned want? I suppose this is what happens when you see people just sell everything and grab a backpack and go walk across some poor country and help people. You know, that's their calling led them there, and they were listening to that voice. I don't think the voice always has to be that intense that, you know, we have to give up everything we have here, but I do think we all have that voice. We all have something that's really calling us. We all have various things which fuel us, and I don't see anything wrong with taking our raw emotions in that particular moment of the day to give us just a bit of spark. You know, if something just it has the ability to drive you just to get that energy, to get it going, then yeah, of course use it. You know, I always say we just use what you got. But I suspect it doesn't contain the longevity and the attention that is truly required of us to meet our full potential and realize our individual worth. That's my suspicion. I could be wrong. The small stuff is kind of like the coyote in sheep's clothing. It often comes to us in the form of excess. And that could be an oxymoron. It seems like it should have our attention when underneath it's very dangerous for us to be concentrating on it. It's like we view the small stuff as big and the big stuff as a distraction, when I think it's the opposite. The truly bigger stuff, the stuff that we should have our focus on, whether that's finding ourselves or realizing ourselves or painting pictures or making music or whatever it is, that bigger stuff that is the most important stuff is often like a little bunny rabbit nibbling away in the corner, just patiently waiting for us to feed it. And we don't understand that that is truly the more important place that we're supposed to be, because it just seems too calm. It's like we like drama or something. It just seems too calm, or it seems too normal, or it seems too boring, when you just have to go to where you're supposed to be. That's it. So sometimes that little cute bunny is just like, oh yeah, he's nice, he's safe, he's calm, he's all this, but he's hungry. He's just not boisterous enough to tell you to feed it. And I thought it was interesting that this is the year of the rabbit. Maybe everything is finally aligning to be gentler all the way around. That would be nice. So I feel the urge to go read some Beatrix Potter now, after all that. There was a quote by her where she says, "It is said that the effect of eating too much lettuce is soporific." Makes us sleepy or laid back or chilled. Lettuce! Who wants to do that? Maybe that's what you're supposed to be doing. And that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to recognize, especially if you're in the arts. I find this a lot with people, a lot of musicians I talk to. You know, I talked to you about being at the NAMM show, and I had a lot of musicians come up to me and say, how do you make it in the biz, and how do you do this? And my question is, well, what's your calling? Where are you supposed to be? Oh, I know this is my calling. Music's your calling. But what are you supposed to be doing with your music? Oh, I just know I'm meant to be that guy. I don't know if you do know that. I don't know if you do know that. Because I believe in my heart of hearts that this world is good and needs more good people and more good things going on. And I think because the world is so good, I think it prompts us and calls us towards good. So if things are too ego-based, there's a good chance that's not your calling. Doesn't mean that some people are not meant to be center stage because of their personality, but I think we all have a responsibility with that power, if that's where we're supposed to be. I think we should go to where we're supposed to be, not where we necessarily want to be based on it making us richer or more famous or feeding our ego or whatever. So I just thought, you know, when I wrote, is the small stuff keeping you from the big stuff? I fear that a lot of people are missing their true calling because they're too distracted by either that career agenda or vengeance, you know, proving their self-worth to somebody else. And it's sad because there's a lot of people who have just not reached their true potential because they're just not listening to that voice, simply just not listening to it. They don't like what it says. They don't think, might think it's boring or whatever, but I think when we just allow the world to show us some things, it can be really exciting. And I personally like the idea of being a little girl on a journey, just checking out all the mysteries. So, yeah, it's just me over here. So I'll check in with you guys again tomorrow, and I hope everything's going fantastically with you. Whiskey's fine. I'm doing great. Everything's cool. So I'll talk to you guys tomorrow, okay? From Whiskey Sour and me. Rock on.